This is the Fat Loss Pro Podcast.
Fat Loss Pro Podcast.
Discover what's needed to burn, build, and shape the body you want. You'll walk away knowing what you need to do to create results now. Chris DeFay is the authority on fat loss and getting you in shape. Cutting edge, results-based info from the world's best that unveils the curtain to quicker, simpler, no-nonsense fat burning, muscle building, and quality health.
Welcome to the Fat Loss Pro podcast. I am the Fat Loss Pro, Chris DeFay, and here we go, backing up the second episode from last week's interview with Matt Legge, the downright genius that is ATP science. Now, before I hit play so we can get straight into the good stuff, I just want to give one recommendation. Head on over to www.chrisdufay.com and where I've got a ton of information there for you to get your hands on straight away with workouts, diets, the whole shebang. If you want the show notes from this episode where I've got links and all the info from it, that's going to be there for you as well. Now strap yourself in because there's double the trouble from last week. Here we go with Matt. Do you find that the biggest problem for the female population is they're getting fed that information that what they're really having to deal with is the FSH and LH?
Yeah. Because that's where the whole model is. You know, the whole model is this brain telling through follicle stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone, telling the ovaries and testicles, what to do. You know, but there's a whole different system that. There's a hierarchy, you know, where the body will actually override that. It's the same way, you know, like if you...
The body doesn't care if you look good in a pair of Speedos. The body cares if it's going to live.
It's sitting there going, who cares about bone and muscle and fat if you're not going to be here tomorrow?
Yes.
You know, it's just like get through today, break down whatever resources you got to do that, and then we'll worry about the other stuff later. The problem is what happens with adrenals is you go through a period of adrenal hyperreactivity distress. So you go through a period of your adrenal gland pumping out ridiculous amounts of cortisol. During that time, it doesn't have enough resources to do cortisol and everything else. So you just do high cortisol. Eventually, it can't maintain high cortisol for too long, and then you go into an adrenal fatigue. Well, I don't like that term, but it's adrenal cortex exhaustion. Because the adrenal medulla that makes your nervous response to stress never runs out. So you can always punch someone and run. You just can't switch that off. You can't let it go. So, the adrenal cortex can become exhausted. And in that case, you don't have enough resources to make cortisol, let alone make DHEA or anything else. So, and the tricky part of treating it as soon as we reload that adrenal with nutrients, it just goes back into overactive. The Chinese are cool. They describe it as an overflowing cup. They talk about your cup as either overflowing with anxiety, inflammation, acidity, whatever, or empty. So you find people with adrenal exhaustion, they go through phases of go, to I'm totally
on
fine.
or off.
There's no middle ground, you know? So it's all about building up that adrenal cortex integrity to be able to do it. But the way to do it is have a preserving effect on the adrenal cortex. If we can tell the adrenal cortex to stop pumping out so much cortisol, start making the other stuff, then you're doing all right.
And how do you do that?
First of all, you got to take the triggers, some of the triggers off. So you'll have stress, so you test out and see what sort of toxic load you got. Your body can't afford to wait to see if it's an allergy, an infection, a toxin, just in case it's a poison or a venom. You know, so it has to treat these things immediately. So find out if there's things that you can avoid. You know, find out if there's foods you can eliminate, toxins you can detoxify. Find out if there's inflammation. Inflammation is a major trigger for stress. Old injuries or immune activation, autoimmune allergies again. Find out what may be driving that nervous system. Take as many of those things away as possible. At the end of the day, your body is designed for survival. So to totally override these systems, we're kidding ourselves. You know, so if you're getting a signal from within your body saying we're doing a process and it is going to keep you alive, and then you think you can take something that's going to override that, you're kind of kidding yourself. You go up and above and beyond and override it, which is why some people, for example, take a sedative to get to sleep and they get more awake. Their body overrides it. So no, I'm telling you, if you're not punching and running, you should at least be hiding. Whatever you do, don't go into a deep sleep. You know, you take a sedative, your body goes, right, fight against that as well. You know, so
just fuels the fire.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So basically what happens is if that nervous system's getting driven and it's constantly getting bombarded, take away as many of those things as possible. And then you look for other things that may result in your body releasing too much cortisol, such as magnesium deficiency is a common one. There are many herbs, and this is where the adaptogenic things.
Yes.
Because, I was talking about the overflowing cup.
Yes.
It's not always a matter of putting a cap on it and filling it. So if we're always looking, every time you've got an empty cup, we've got to fill it. Every time it's overflowing, we've got to put a cap on it. Then you're hovering between stimulants and sedatives.
Again, you're going too yin or too yang.
Exactly. The way the Chinese treat it is they build you a bigger cup.
Yeah, right.
You build a bigger cup, you can hold a hell of a lot more before you overflow.
Yes.
That's how adaptogens work. Right. Adaptogens build you a big cup. Yeah. So adaptogens such as your withania, your ashwagandha, your rhodiolas. One of my favourite ones, your sandra berries. I love them things. A lot of those good adaptogens, what they do is if your cortisol levels are low, they pick it up. But if it's up and high, it calms it down. And there's other ways of doing it. The best way to restore adrenal function is sleep.
Yeah.
It's not about pushing the adrenals up all day to keep you awake. It's about getting them to switch off at night so you get a time to refresh, reload, rebuild your levels. Otherwise, you're trying to space out a certain amount of hormone through a 24-hour period. And it'll give you a little trickle all day, not enough to help you deal with stress or inflammation and energy, but to leave you with this annoying little trickle at night. It's just enough to stop you from getting into a deep, refreshing sleep. So you kind of flatline.
And then the cycle continues.
And if that's happening with you because you'll find that it's really hard to get started in the morning.
Yes.
But it's really hard to switch off at night.
How many people will have that problem? They're still
tired
up awake at night, exactly, but then they can't get out of bed.
And the tireder you get during the day, the harder it is to get a good night's sleep. So many people.
And so then what do? Drink more caffeine.
They focus on boosting all day. Where if they would focus on switching off at night and getting that down at night, they're going to have this abundance of energy during the day. And it's a simple concept that isn't it funny if people focus on that, driving those catabolic things during the day just to keep their energy levels going. When we're training, we're eating, we're doing all this stuff to build muscle, but we're not taking the opportunity to actually put those amino acids into the building blocks of muscle when we're asleep at night. And we supplement with it. Take all these protein, we've got this awesome amino acid pool that we potentially could tap into. But if you're not in that recovery mode, if you're catabolic while you're sleeping because of your trickle of cortisol, how frustrating. You're training.
You're not actually building anything.
Exactly. And then people wonder why, when I first started, those first 3 years when I was training, I was getting massive gains. But now all of a sudden I can't build muscle. I can't. I'm just hit that plateau. This is my genetics. This is all my genetics is going to allow me to do. It's like,
bollocks.
Well, that's true. There's ways of finding what the handbrakes are, what the hurdles are, and then pushing through to that next level, And I was even talking with our Troy Bremer, Christine Enville, yesterday. We're talking about her results that she's achieved in the last couple of years by doing less weight and working just totally different, just shaking things up, but continually pushing yourself like you did when you first started the gym. If we continue to go up in weight and focus and try as hard as we did in those first few years and towards the end of your career, you can just keep pushing through.
Going the whole time. All right, let's go into PCOS next, and then I want to touch back onto the sleep that you
Man, I'm sorry. I've from estrogen to
it's perfect.
But so basically with the what'd you ask me?
PCOS.
Oh, PCOS. PCOS, we used to call it insulin resistance syndrome. So basically, the concept of PCOS is in the first half of the menstrual cycle, when the body's supposed to, in the women, this is, the testosterone is supposed to be converting to estrogen to mature a follicle. Insulin blocks that conversion. Testosterone builds up into the ovary. That stops the follicle from developing. The follicle then doesn't pop off and it stays there and forms a cyst. It causes a big build-up of testosterone within the visceral area. Okay, so in around the pelvic region, things like that. And that then converts through to dihydrotestosterone, which preserves the fat like a pot belly. Also, these will happen in the ovaries. It'll happen in fat cells. It'll happen in skin cells, and it'll happen in hair follicles. Which is why you'll see changes. Hair loss on the head, hair growth on the back, and sideburns sort of thing. Maybe a bit of acne, pot belly. It's a dihydrotestosterone also makes you crazy angry, like irrational angry. So you'll see a combination of moods, sugar cravings, bad skin, beard, pot belly, those sort of things happening as part of it. the body assesses that there's a testosterone overload in certain parts of the body that it can't correct. So what I was saying before is the ratios are more important than the amounts.
Yep.
It knows there's another part of the body that can convert testosterone to estrogen, which it does in the fat cells under your skin, which is why often in PCOS you'll see one or two things. You'll either see a body type that's extremely androgenic.
Yes.
It's a very masculine body type. Those people don't have much subcutaneous fat. If you find some PCOS in someone that has a decent load of subcutaneous fat, that subcutaneous fat gets out of control crazy because of the combination of insulin resistance and the estrogen dominance that occurs in the local fat to compensate for the testosterone overload in the other parts of the body. So the way we treat PCOS, treat the insulin.
Yes.
Now, how to do that depends on the person, and you would probably be the man to talk to with that to work out training and the timing of the macros.
Yeah.
So with insulin, it's all the timing seems to be the most important.
Yes,
so for everyone with work PCOS, we know there's a window.
And that's a really good thing that you said that, because normally it's just like, okay, eat low carb.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, no, it's not. It's not that simple.
Yes, exactly.
There's more. Yeah.
And so we get. So that's what you find, and that's the typical thing. It was always the lowest carb diet possible is the best way to do insulin. But with the work that you guys have been doing, discovering the insulin sensitivity remains until you've replenished the glycogen. It gives us that good window where we can use different forms of carbohydrates.
Absolutely.
To have a better quality diet. So we do that. We deal with the insulin problems. We then detoxify estrogen and testosterone, which is usually high doses of the DIMs and those cofactors.
Again, that's where the alpha Venus comes in.
The alpha Venus will be perfect for that. Because the alpha Venus doesn't screw around with testosterone production in the ovaries. So it's actually going to be suitable for PCOS, which is pretty cool. So that's basically how we do it. Detoxify, correct the insulin sensitivity, and work with someone like yourself that can tell them when to eat in relation to training to deal with the insulin sensitivity. It's probably been the biggest breakthrough that's happened in the last couple of years. Because like you're saying, prior to that, it was just low carb or low GI or something. Low GI used to bug the hell out of me. You get a wheelbarrow of low GI sugar and a wheelbarrow of high GI sugar. You've eaten a wheelbarrow of sugar. You know what I mean? You got diabetes anyway. You know. But so that's the big point. Is it's not just there's no simple things. And testing and measuring. Because there's so many different body types with polycystic ovarian syndrome. The other thing to look for is the other forms of genetic links, whether there's a family history of insulin problems such as diabetics, or whether there's a family history of methylation problems, which links in with the inability to detoxify the estrogen, testosterone, the MTHFR gene, which I won't abbreviate on your show. You say it fast, you'll know what I mean. But so that's how we deal with PCOS. And it's so common. 1 in 4 women think they got it. 1 in 10 women have been diagnosed with it.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
It is. It's very common. Like actually, this episode will come out 1 to 2 weeks after a 3-part series of myself being interviewed on how to help females. It relates to PCOS as well. So
it's crazy.
It's everywhere. And so that's perfect. Okay, sleep.
The most important thing.
Because I harp on about this all the time. I'm always going every seminar that I've just done in the last month, I had a good large area of time where I was just talking about sleep. So
and it's not many people sleep well. Because there's a big difference between going to bed and going to sleep. It's all about the quality of the sleep.
Thank you, Matt.
Because I've done a lot of work with shift workers. So when I work with a lot of these mining guys that do the shift workers, some of these guys, they can only get like a 4 or 5 hours of actual sleep. They could have 8 hours of, rolling around like an idiot. Or we can get them 4 to 5 hours of really high quality sleep, and they can continue to function when they're on the night shift and sleeping during the day. And then when they switch back to the other routine. So we've had to learn. I learned a lot of tricks from shift workers. These guys are doing things like three days of day shift, 3 days night shift, 3 days off. Their body never gets a chance to adjust.
Very similar to like coppers and ambulance.
Exactly, and your fireys and all that sort of stuff. Although the fireys are sleeping often when they're at work. But so basically, what you'll actually find happening with sleep is like I said before, sedatives don't always work. If you find that you take a sedative and it wakes you up, then don't worry about it. Your body's overriding. You're running in stress mode. We've got to be smarter.
Yeah.
What I prefer to do, and I never use sedatives, it's to help people sleep because it makes people groggy.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work.
Especially for someone like a minor, because they can't be groggy or under that. Or
and often, tired enough to fall asleep in front of TV, but by the time you get up and go to bed or something like that, you're awake. It's stupid.
Yeah.
What I find is there's two involuntary nerves in the body. The sympathetic nervous system, which does the fight or flight response. Then we've got the parasympathetic. Parasympathetic nervous system runs on acetylcholine.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we get people into a deep sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Serotonin is the sleepy chemical. That's what will get you to sleep.
Yeah.
Serotonin has to be converted to melatonin through darkness and the use of things like dopamine, acetylcholine to achieve that to happen.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm getting technical.
No, this is
but basically,
yep.
what I'm getting at is if you can tired enough to get to sleep, the challenge is keeping you asleep and putting you into a deep sleep.
Yep.
In my naturopath clinic, for sleep products, I actually use things like ginkgo biloba and bacopa.
Yeah.
Now, those things traditionally, if you're dumb and your brain doesn't work, you can actually take those things in the morning and you're wide awake all day.
Yeah.
Mental clarity and focus.
Yeah.
You do a double dose at night, it preserves this chemical called acetylcholine that helps you to go into a very deep, refreshing sleep.
Yeah.
I use a double dose of those sort of things at night and you go to sleep. I learned that when I used to do a lot of travelling, a lot of seminars, because they'd be wide, finish your seminar at 9, 10 at night, you're all excited.
Yeah.
You go back to this boring hotel room, you've got to go somewhere at 5 o'clock the next morning. So you're sitting there the whole thing, if I get to sleep now, I'll get 6 hours. If I get to sleep now, I'll get 5 hours. So I learned the trick that if I had these ginkgos and these bacopas, big doses, it flushes all the blood up, it clears all that waste away, it gives you that mental clarity and focus.
Those nutrients are normally used to actually stimulate the brain.
They'll use them like pre-workouts.
Yeah, exactly.
But the problem is often we're getting mental chatter.
Yes.
Okay, imagine this. You've been training all day. You build up a lot of lactic acid into your muscles.
Mm-hmm.
What happens to your muscles? They feel tight and tense.
Mm-hmm.
They twitch, they tap, they might even cramp.
Mm-hmm.
Your brain doesn't have pain receptors.
Mm.
You don't know if your brain is hurting.
Yeah.
The way our brain manifests acidity and tension is with thinking.
Yeah.
So basically a lot of my concept, especially for athletes and people that are training, the first thing I do is I buffer acid.
Yes.
If I buffer off acid, then they've got one less trigger hitting their nerves. So if your muscles are tight and tense, you can fair chance your brain's going to be as well.
Yeah.
If your muscles are cramping, then that'll manifest in your brain as anxiety.
Yeah. Yeah.
If your muscles are twitching and tremoring, that'll manifest in your brain as worry, anxiety, gut instincts, intuition, feeling things aren't quite right. Your brain's not going to cramp, but it can have a panic attack.
Yes.
So basically my first port of call is to get people to relax enough to sleep is I will actually buffer the acid in their body.
Yep.
High doses of magnesium, potassium citrates and that sort of stuff.
Yep.
We use infrared as our product that alkalizes people as they're training.
Okay,
so we don't have that sort of problem with our athletes.
Yep.
But everyone else, magnesium, potassium citrate, big doses. Taurine as well to stop those nerve irritation. And then what we do is we go through and support those things with the ginkgo, the bacopas, and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Support the parasympathetic nervous system, which is a better way because then people wake up feeling awesome.
Yeah.
I used to use a lot of melatonin.
Yeah.
Don't do it. They've changed the rules in Australia. You need a prescription for melatonin. So all my shift workers use melatonin. No one uses melatonin religiously. We use it for a period of time to get a routine.
It's
and then we
more
use
used to get into the circadian rhythm and be able to set that.
Just to force the cortisol to go low, force you into that deep sleep.
Yeah.
It's an awesome tool to have.
Yeah.
You can just smack a bit of that in before you go to sleep. Within about 20 minutes, it's actually starting to work, So, and it'll force it down. What I notice with melatonin is people don't actually sleep any longer. They just wake up feeling refreshed.
Yeah.
And a much deeper, better quality
of sleep. It's a good thing that you said before because like the protocol that I've used before going to bed is for quite some time now has been mag glycinate and taurine just to keep it nice and simple. And also sometimes I'd use inositol as well and it would be brilliant sleep.
Yeah, absolutely perfect. Very similar to what I'm talking about. Yeah. So you do that and a lot of the compounds that we use for the parasympathetic nervous system are all these different cholines, phosphatidylcholine, phosphatidylinositol, phosphatidylserine, those sort of things that we find out of soy-based lecithins and that sort of stuff. So they're the ingredients that I tend to use a lot in my clinic to get people to sleep, and lots of other little tricks.
Yeah.
So much of it is pattern, routine, and tricks.
Yeah.
There's this stuff I used to use a lot in my clinic. I still do it all for the babies and stuff. Stuff called black sesame oil. Yeah. It's just an oil. Yeah. You heat it right up. It's an old Ayurvedic Indian technique. Yeah. In Indian medicine, you've got Vata, Pitta, Kapha. Yeah. Vata is travel, it's airy, it's stuff in your head and that. Yeah. Black sesame oil is used as a Vata pacifier. Okay, yeah. So what you do is you get these big buckets of black sesame oil, you heat them right up, and you just, after you get out of the shower at night, heat this thing, let it sit in the hot water for a while till it's nice and warm while you're having a shower. Yeah. When you come out, just slap it all over your neck, shoulders, chest, back, throat. Just basically cover your body in this black sesame oil. Yeah. Give yourself a massage sort of thing. Yeah. Man,
you're going to be freaky
here. It relaxes you out so much, man. It's really, really nice. And it mellows you out so much that you start, it also creates a ritual and a routine where you know that I'm buttering up, it's getting close to business time, and then sleep, you know? Yeah.
So that's so important, because I always say to people that at least the first point of call to improve your sleep is, one, get away from your electronics.
Yeah, darkness.
And you've got to set yourself up that routine. Like, I'm personally a huge routine follower for I know exact routine when I wake up. I know my routine before I go to bed. But it's also one thing is your bedrooms for two things: sleep and sex. Yeah. Get rid of all the technology. Yeah. Start dimming down your lights. Yeah. Ease up on the pituitary gland. Yeah. And the exact same thing what you're saying now. Get into the routine. Your body knows. It's just like a child. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? My daughter knows it's bedtime when it's okay, it's bath time now. You have a bath, and it's okay, now I'm going to give her the bottle, and then she puts herself to sleep. I just put her down into the bed, and she just rolls over and falls asleep.
Yeah. So we're all the same. So we were babies once, and that's when we did our best work. Yeah. So we should just follow those same sort of routines that worked for us previously. Yeah. Yeah. And routine is so important. You heard the 21-day thing, you can break and create any habits in 21 days. Right, okay. Yeah, there's some magical number about 21.
I thought it was 60 or 66.
Oh, that 60 guy's wrong, man. We're way ahead of him now. Our market research is 21 days is what the people are looking for. There's this magical thing about 21 days and these cycles of 3 lots of 7 and everything like that, where you can break a habit, make a habit 21 days. Right. Bugs the hell out of people in my naturopath clinic because they always want to come for their follow-up at either 2 or 4 weeks. And I said, no, I want to see you 21 days. So I can see that we've changed the pattern and we're moving on.
Yeah. It's based because it works.
Yeah, that's right. And it's no, I'm a bit fussy with it. But yeah.
No, it's good. Okay. Last one is males. Let's talk about males, because obviously, we always talk a lot about females and female fat loss because they're normally the ones having the dramas most of the time, and obviously dealing with male hormones and their hormonal environment's easier. Yeah. What can the guys do?
We just run on bigger cycles. Exactly. So with the blokes, same what we were saying before, estrogen preserves fat. Yep. Testosterone helps the body to burn it. Yep. Males do have estrogen. Okay, so a lot of people think, oh no, that's estrogen only for the women and testosterone only for the men. But in men, estrogen is made from testosterone in the fat cells. So 85 to 95% of all the estrogen in men is coming directly out of their fat cells. So this is the tricky thing with blokes is we want to build up their testosterone to build up their metabolism. Mm-hmm. There's an enzyme in their fat that's converting testosterone to estrogen. The aromatase enzyme. We go and do a huge amount of testosterone boosting before they've burnt the fat off. Yeah. Then they're going to get a lot of conversion of that to estrogen unless our test boosters have a strategy to block that conversion. Yes. So it's funny you talk about 2 things to happen in the bedroom, like sex and sleep, because there's some funny case studies that come out of our trials for the alpha males where they're both happening at the same time. And my wife ended up pregnant, so I hope it was me. But basically, with the product, with the male
research and development.
Yeah, research and development. It's elaborate number 1, the pajamas. So basically, when we do the for the fat burning, in particular for the men, again, the handbrakes, the most common handbrakes that we have to take care of is estrogen and insulin, and then again, subclinical low thyroid. Blokes don't have anywhere near the same amount of thyroid disorders as women, but what blokes have a lot of is what we call subclinical sluggish thyroid. Mm-hmm. So we get a lot of the symptoms of it, but we don't actually have thyroid disease. So basically, for men to burn fat, take control of the insulin through diet and exercise, detoxify the estrogen while we build up testosterone, and then get rid of that silly hormone cortisol. That's the big culprit for men, because men, not that we have more stress than women, but we deal with it differently. We get big blasts of cortisol and then it kind of switches off. So we get lots of exposure to cortisol in a 24-hour period.
Yep.
And what cortisol does in men is it breaks down the muscle mass and liberates sugar into the bloodstream to help us work, and it preserves fat in around our internal organs.
Yep.
And so basically, this is where it gets tricky, is because when the cortisol goes high, it actually makes the thyroid go sluggish. When the thyroid's sluggish, cortisol goes high. Cortisol causes estrogen to go high. Estrogen causes cortisol to go high. We get stuck into a bit of a vicious cycle. So for men, when we made that Alpha Mars product, yes, easy enough to boost testosterone. I mean, I can show you my boobs and your testosterone levels will come up. So this is the problem is when your testosterone surge up, we want to keep it up for a long enough period of time to actually change your anatomy, physiology. Negative feedback usually stops that from happening. So there's a lot of products out there you can use to boost testosterone, but within about a week, they're not working anymore. So our plan is to build up testosterone, free up that testosterone, at the same time as blocking the conversion of testosterone to estrogen, which holds love handles and fat on the lower back glutes and hemis. Or also block the conversion of testosterone to dihydro, and dihydrotestosterone causes fat in around your internal organs, deep inside, the dad belly sort of thing.
The stuff that causes problems.
And then for estrogen in men, you can do a quick course, because see, what happens is we're not going to have the same amount of estrogen made constantly. So with us, we only need to do a DIM, like an estrogen detoxification thing, maybe a couple of times a year to clean out the stuff from the environment. But we're better off focusing on the fat tissue to block the estrogen production, because that's where 95% of it's happening. Now, that fat tissue I'm talking about, it's less than 2 mils under the skin. The hair follicles, the sweat glands, the base of those tissue will sit actually in those fat cells. So when you take something orally, it really struggles to find that fat and access that fat. We make a product called Block E3, where we've micronized, which means making the particle size small enough of aromatase inhibitors that can penetrate through the skin and get into the fat tissue under the skin and block the conversion of testosterone to estrogen right there. That instantly changes the estrogen load through the body and increases the testosterone. So if you do a test booster orally at the same time as we do an estrogen blocker transdermally, you get a quick shift in the male physiology. As soon as you change the testosterone and estrogen ratios, if there is no thyroid disease or no genuine insulin problems and cortisol problems, you watch a lot of those other things change. A quick change to the testosterone estrogen ratio in a man can eliminate a lot of the other problems. And then all you got to do is deal with the cortisol.
And so one point there is obviously so many other products on the market are talking about, yes, they can do this, but it's not actually targeting where it needs to go to have that change in physique. And so therefore, obviously, people are ranting and raving, going out there and trying to buy all these different products. But it's not actually doing anything because it's not going to the target tissue.
Exactly. So, for example, flavone-based aromatase inhibitors, less than 5% of that is bioavailable. Okay? So what most companies would do then, but when you do it transdermally, it's closer to 95%. So, but what everyone's out there is doing is going, but people don't want to rub stuff onto their muscles. There's no industry for rubbing creams onto your love handles. We take tablets and we train, or we take powders and train. So what people are doing then is they will just multiply the dose by about 20 just to try to saturate through those systems. But that causes liver damage. And then
it's going to have side effects.
Then those side effects, and the product gets banned. And then people go back to using that same dose that was studied intravenous. This is the thing that bugs me. They do a study, an intravenous, and then they'll use that literature to sell something orally. It doesn't work that way. Diaspartic acid. I don't normally bag, but I'm bagging the ingredients. Not So diaspartic acid bugs the hell out of me. They reference back to this paper all the time, its ability to boost testosterone. In this paper that they reference, yes, there's a section in the paper where they've bathed testicles with diaspartic acid and it's made testosterone. Okay? But in the very same study they reference to say diaspartic acid makes testosterone, in the very same study they say you give diaspartic acid to an ovaries, it makes estrogen. You give diaspartic acid to a fat cell, it triggers aromatase and makes estrogen. Now, it just so happens, well, maybe not the testicles and the ovaries in the same body, but it just so happens that in a human body, diaspartic acid might be triggering testosterone release from the testes, but it might be converting it to estrogen in the fat. Diaspartic acid works as a nerve irritant. That's actually how it works. So whatever nerve you hit with it, it'll trigger. Similar to like MSG. MSG is a flavour enhancer. Irritates the nerves on your tongue. Aspartic acid, very similar to aspartames and those sort of things, which is a nerve irritant. So that's how aspartame, that artificial sweetener, works. Irritates the sweet taste buds on the tongue. Aspartic acid irritates nerves all over the body. Whatever that nerve happens to be doing, it will tell it to do it. So it'll release cortisol when you activate the adrenal cortex. It'll release estrogen. So
the two biggest things that we've just been talking about.
But people will take one paragraph out of a study and say aspartic acid in an isolated system can boost testosterone.
They're just looking at it through a straw.
But you know what it's like if you have a nerve irritant, like any of those things I mentioned, aspartames and MSGs and those sort of things, they kind of pick you up. You feel all right. You know? So that's why
it's that acute feeling, so someone feels good with it, but it's not necessarily actually going to cause the effect.
It's funny that you say that, because with our transdermal products, a lot of people used to, they never argued our science about how the active ingredients work. They never argue that, I believe you that this stuff works. But they just couldn't get their head around that it could get through the skin. So, because when you use our subcut, which is the fat burner, block E3 is the estrogen blocker, you don't feel things instantly, because they don't burn the skin or irritate or give you a rash. There's no immediate effect there. But what we tell, and we actually have to tell people to take accurate measurements, because if we go just subjectively, they don't feel that much different. But then they say, but I have lost an inch. Which is all we care about. When we released the Prototype 7, which you feel you've used it, you feel it. So with Prototype 7, within a minute, you're getting massive vasodilation. It increased our sales of our other transdermal products significantly, because all of a sudden people started believing, so Prototype 7, and I put that on my muscle and it blows right up really, really quickly. So, okay, I believe transdermal now, So, but before they and I used to do all this training, and you just see it's funny that people are like, and I reference it well to medical journals, and it's like, it's dead set, it works, And these people, you just see them, they're skeptical. It's like, how can it get through the skin? You talk about anti-inflammatories, like, for example, the active ingredients in Prototype 7, almost exactly the same molecular structure and shape as testosterone. So we've actually used the same technology used by testosterone creams and progesterone creams to actually get the Prototype 7 to work properly. People were all kind of, I know I totally believe testosterone gel will work, and I totally believe a progesterone cream will work, but
they don't.
This is natural, How can a natural thing possibly work through the skin?
And this is where people have to get educated on that this is what actually is needed for that end result.
And that's how we satisfy the curiosity with a product like Prototype 7, which you put on the skin and stuff happens. And all of a sudden you see that little roadblock that might have stopped them from trying it just disappears, and all of a sudden they go, man, no.
Could deal with the psychological factors for them to get it drummed into them.
And it's understandable too, But it's a complex little system, the skin.
That's good. All right, we could probably talk for days. I know I could talk to you for days anyway. What are a couple of takeaway points that the listener can do right now to get in better shape? Because really the Fat Loss Pro podcast is trying to give you the actionable tips, tricks, tactics, methods, applications to get in better shape. Give a couple.
Have a look. You know where you want to be, okay? You're kind of working out how to get there. What you got to do is stop looking at things like fat and things like that and start looking at yourself, okay? The number one thing is, are you sleeping well? Do you poo well? How's your hormonal ratio? Have a look at what symptoms are going on in your body. Then the challenge is to try to think, how many of those things can I easily take away? How many of those things are coming from avoidable things that I can just remove today and they're gone? And then you'll be amazed to see how many things just kind of disappear. So start working with stuff practical. Make sure you've got a good routine and you're sleeping well. Make sure you're sitting down to eat. Don't eat on the run. Little simple things that you can do. Support digestion through meditation, digestive stimulants, and actually sitting down to eat, switching off to sleep. Get those basic routine things right first. Build a steady state. If you suffer from allergies, go see someone about that. Find out which foods or exposure are doing it. If you're getting recurrent colds and flus and infections, you have to deal something about it. If you've got a recurrent injury, address it. So have a look at yourself. A big thing about my naturopath clinic is we never treated diseases, we treated people. And that was a beautiful thing. I never cured a thing in 18 years, but man, we helped a lot of people that were about to die stay alive, stay alive longer. So
what a great way to put it.
Yeah, because you have a look at a disease. What is a disease? If you just split the word up, it's disease. So this person, they're not suffering from antibiotic deficiency, for example. You know, when you've got depression, it's not because you've got a suprameal deficiency. You know, don't have an antidepressant deficiency, and that this thing going in suddenly has filled the gap because genetically you were predisposed to needing medication. You know, it doesn't happen that way. No. Have a look at yourself. See which things in your own lifestyle and stuff you can do. Research you and find out where your weaknesses are. Take them out, and you'll spin out to see how effective common sense, clean eating, exercise, and then all of a sudden supplements can start working once you've taken off those handbrakes.
Yeah, awesome.
So that's the first thing. Work out where you want to be first. Find out what your potential hurdles, handbrakes may be stopping you from getting there. Eliminate them first and see what's left over.
Good.
Yeah.
It's simple. Like, it's not common sense because it's not common, but it's what works at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's right.
It's just, and obviously, I hope the listener, if you go through every other bloody episode I've just done, it's very similar, if not the same advice that I've been giving as well. But
everyone gets results to saying the same thing.
Exactly.
And it's been exactly the same thing for a long time.
Yeah, it hasn't changed. There's no magic potion, pill, anything like that. And
that's what we say about common sense. It's so rare now. It's a superpower.
I would agree. I would 100% agree. All right, Matt. Now, obviously, I would love everyone to go onto the ATP project, which is going to be brand new just after this episode comes out, where they're going to be able to listen to yourself. And who are you going to be with?
Probably this fella, Jeff Doy. Jeff Deutsch, my business partner. We're trying to work out how to make his name sound flashy. It's not as cool as Legge. We're going to have a lot of other guests. Regular Mike Galley, he'll be helping us with the interviewing.
Awesome.
But we've got a lot of guests I can't list off yet. But the big thing we're doing is we're doing the podcast, we're doing the blogs, but we're going to create a massive archive, a big library, ebooks, all the information resources that you could possibly need.
Awesome.
And then basically we're really excited to work with people like yourself to kind of help share that information and collaborate together, share information.
So needed just to be able to give the right quality information out there.
There's so much noise out there.
Yeah.
The only way we're going to do it is by teaming up, doing it word of mouth. At the end of the day, if we're not helping people, then we're kidding ourselves.
Yeah.
So that's the point.
And it's such a good point because, and I know that all the people listening will feel the exact same, and I get literally hundreds of emails a week, and the biggest complaint is confusion and frustration.
Yeah.
What do? I read one thing and they say do this, and then I read another thing and they say the exact opposite.
Yeah.
And obviously people are just on a spinning wheel the whole time, not getting anywhere. So this is exactly what we can do for the world.
Yeah, that's right. It's a fair bit of grey area there, but what we try to do is go through and
educate on what that grey
explain
is.
what it means for you, because there's no right or wrong in any of this sort of stuff. It's actually how does it relate to you and what can you find useful in it.
Exactly right, and that's why there is so much conflicting information. It's not necessarily, that person's wrong and that person's right. It's like, no, they're both right, but they're right in certain circumstances and situations.
Yeah, that's right. Like simple things like, does a horse pull a cart? Or does a horse push a bridle and the bridle pulls a cart? It's the same end result, but we might look at it totally different. One's pulling, one's pushing, exactly the same.
No, those are really good. I like that. Okay, beautiful.
You can use that.
Thanks. I appreciate it. I'm recording that. Okay, how can they learn more about ATP and yourself?
Basically through the ATP webpage. All that information should be there.
Awesome.
Or will be there.
I'm going to put all the links for the ATP project and the ATP website on the show notes as well, so everyone can get it from there.
That's great. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much, mate.
It's good fun.
I appreciate that.
This has been another jaw-dropping podcast from the Fat Loss Pro, Chris DeFay. After subscribing to the Fat Loss Pro podcast,
go to www.chrisdefay.com
to get your free fat loss diet, training programs, insights, and more to burn fat faster and shape a better